Hello and welcome to ULI-Philadelphia. This is Emerging Trends in Real Estate 2008. In Podcast 5, we'll take a look at the retail and hospitality sectors of the real estate economy with a panel of experts.
Aran, do you want to start in talking about what's been going on in the hospitality industry and particularly in the broader region?
Certainly, Gus. And I have a bit of a cold, so I'll try to keep my remarks sort of brief. I wanted to touch on two topics, Atlantic City and then the expansion of the convention center. I think the stories coming out of Atlantic City right now almost seem like a contradiction, that we have a situation where we're seeing year-over-year declines in gaming revenue. At the same time, we have some massive projects being announced. I think part of this context to understand is just the expansion of gaming in other areas that are presenting some competition for Atlantic City. We have Pennsylvania, which is adding casinos. We have Yonkers opened up with 4,500 VLTs in the New York area. So we're starting to see gaming a lot more convenient to where people live. To put some of the numbers in perspective, the year-over-year decline in gaming revenue in Atlantic City so far this year is 4.8%, which is about $190 million. Of course, we had the loss of the Sands, but if we look at the two racetrack casinos that have opened in Philly so far, they've generated over $450 million in gaming revenue so far this year. As we see two more open up, I think we're going to see more impacts to Atlantic City. It's just a lot more convenient to game here in Philadelphia than to drive out to Atlantic City. And I'm not going to pontificate on the opening dates of Sugar House and Foxwoods, but I think when we look at the two facilities that opened so far, and of that, $470 million in revenue, we're seeing $250 million in tax revenue. It looks sort of like a pretty big freight train to try to get in front of. So turning to Atlantic City, there's four major projects announced right now. There's Revel, which I guess this morning just got approval on their city plan and advanced their opening date into 2010. Previously, it was 2011. There's the Bar Bashaw project, a $1 to $2 billion project. There's Pinnacle has been talking about a $1 to $2 billion project, and MGM Grand Atlantic City with a $4.5 to $5 billion investment. And I think that, in the situation where we see this increased competition, and it's sort of the question rises, if we don't expect gaming revenue in Atlantic City to grow much between now and 2011, why are these major projects happening? Atlantic City certainly has a low tax rate compared to what's going on in Pennsylvania, and a very stable regulatory environment. And I think that groups that are looking at developments in Las Vegas, Macau, see Atlantic City as a major opportunity with 24 million people within a 2.5-hour drive. It's a major market. The question becomes, if you spend this kind of money, can you totally change the perception of Atlantic City and attract visitors who right now are not even considering coming to the market? So that we wait to see what will happen there. I think coming closer home to Philadelphia, if I was sitting here, it was November 2001, and we were trying to anticipate what would happen to hotel guests in the city, I would be most likely saying that we'd lose a lot of our leisure visitors, that they'd be the last to return. Group visitors would be slow to return, and the first that we would see would be business travelers coming back. As we look back now, we see that it was just the opposite story, that the business travelers were the last to return. The leisure travelers, through the local marketing efforts, national marketing efforts, through the Expedias of the world, realizing the pricing opportunity and getting the inventory out there, we saw a resurgence in leisure travel, and we saw the group business coming back second, followed by the business transient. And I think that really speaks also to the importance of group business in this market. About a third of the room nights in Philadelphia are group travelers, so this opportunity to expand the convention center, 60% increase in sellable space, is really critical to Philadelphia being able to control its own destiny from a group perspective and really hold on to that base. I mean, I can't anticipate whether a recession will happen or not. I think the odds are pretty low, but if we go in through some tight years, having that basic group business can be really important to Center City hotels.
Michael, do you want to talk about what we what the prospects are for retail, in particular in terms of what we've been talking about this morning in terms of slowing consumer spending there?
Sure. My perspective, and I'm pleased to be part of the panel with the economists this morning, I'll try to give you the perspective which is mine, and that is really just down and dirty brokerage on the street kind of thing, which is what we do. The market, generally speaking, is still very, very strong. In terms of the larger format users, we're not really seeing any slowdown of the Targets and Lowe's anchored centers, Wegmans, Whole Foods, et cetera. On a smaller scale, the most active segments continue to be quick casual dining and banks, and both of these sectors are forcing rents up all over the market, but particularly in the suburbs to levels that shock even us, and there seems to be no end to that run-up. In terms of, I made a few notes on what I heard earlier. Someone was touching on web sales as it relates to retail, and we're definitely starting to see that affect retailers and retailers' plans as it relates to their larger rollouts. They're scaling back a bit to the point that we're starting to see some experimentation with some interesting concepts. For example, we're handling a company right now called Now, spelled N-A-U, and it's a Norwegian apparel company that sells higher-end sporting good apparel, so think like REI or Patagonia or something. And while they're a web retailer, they're opening stores that they call web fronts, small stores, 2,000 square feet. You can actually go in, try this stuff on, ask questions. You can purchase it right there, but they encourage people to use web kiosks in the store to make the actual purchase. And if you do that, you get a 10% discount, you get free home delivery. They're tying this into their green initiatives so that they use less energy, the stores can be smaller, delivering from the warehouse, more fuel efficient, and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of people like that coming online. One of the biggest segments that we're seeing being very active is street retail, and really in all its forms, not just Center City, Philadelphia, but main streets, town center developments, lifestyle projects with main street components. The larger chains have more units than ever in these types of projects, largely because some of them are new, but in terms of street retail, we're seeing this being a huge focus. And as a result, for this demand, the rents in Philly, Center City specifically, are finally catching up with other markets in the country. We're routinely doing deals, talking about west side of the city for the moment, but whether it's Walnut, Chestnut Market, well in excess of $100 a square foot. And a lot of this is getting national attention and press, which makes my job a lot easier. So, for example, there was an article in Women's Wear Daily a couple weeks ago, which we do actually read in our business to see who's doing what. That's the only reason. And they listed the top 10 most expensive retail streets in the country, of which Walnut Street or Rittenhouse Row made the list. I actually question the accuracy of it. In fact, I think it's dead wrong, but it's nice to have made the list, and we're seeing a lot of people inquire to the area because of all these other people locating here. And I think a big part of that is something that was touched on earlier as well, which is this Philadelphia's the sixth borough phenomenon. And I know there's two sides to that, and a lot of people think it's a bad thing, a lot of people think it's a good thing, but it's definitely having an impact on what we're doing. We're seeing retailers and restaurants that are really grown in New York looking here through word of mouth of a lot of the transplants that are coming out of there, really looking at our city because of affordable housing, the easy commute, the arts and culture. I actually have family members that are split commuters. One works in New York, one works here. And this word of mouth is getting back. And we have presently 6 very high fashion apparel tenants that we're working with to locate in the city that we can directly trace to this phenomenon. We have a lot of restaurants. We're working with Wolfgang Steakhouse, like we need another steakhouse, but working with them right now directly out of New York. And with a lot of the residential transplants and hopefully a lot of this new construction coming online, we're seeing a lot of home furnishings chains, such as Pogan Pole, which I don't think we would have seen someone like that, that cutting-edge type of home retailer looking in this market without this, this influx of New York activity. Outside of Philly, we're still seeing a lot of street interest as well. For example, we're working with Buccini Pollen Group right now in Wilmington, and they've purchased about 40% of the Market Street corridor, and we're working on the retail mix for them. And them controlling such a large block really allows us to kind of treat it like a shopping center and get our anchors, control the mix, et cetera. There's 10 million square feet of office space right there, and there's not even a Starbucks, which, I mean, you can't go 6 feet from where we are right now and not pass a couple of them. In the deeper suburbs, we're seeing the street retail interest accomplished by town center developments. So, you know, middle of the cornfield type of thing. And these are usually large mixed-use projects. And the mixed use we're finding is key. We're finding that size is key to these. So all of your typical disciplines, office, residential, et cetera. Municipal components are great. We're seeing township buildings, libraries, medical components, many different aspects of these coming into these town centers. The biggest challenge we're finding for the developers that we work with is that they can't really achieve the densities that they're looking for because the zoning ordinances in many of these municipalities never contemplated these types of developments. And one of the interesting things that we see is that they're allowing the municipalities what we call transferred development rights, which I had no idea what these were before we got involved with one, or TDRs. And that's where, for example, the municipality will allow a developer to pay someone with a large tract of land, let's say a farmer within that township. They can purchase that person's development rights. Thus, the township gets guaranteed open space, the farmer gets a windfall, supposedly, of cash, and the developer gets increased density on their site, which, again, is critical to this type of development. Really, the only softness that we're seeing, and I'll just close with that, as we've heard again and again this morning, is in the outlying markets where they're really dependent upon these sort of cookie-cutter residential subdivisions that were getting built and have either slowed down completely or didn't happen at all. Other than that, from our aspect, it's been very positive and very active.
And Joe, what are you seeing?
Well, I've heard the analogy today of glass half full versus half empty a couple of times, and I think the Philadelphia retail glass is 3/4 full. I think we're in a very good position with respect to retail development. I think it's important, though, that when you think about retail, you think about our business as having two customers. It's not if you build it, they will come, because if you build it, you get the tenant or the merchant, and then you've got to hope you get the customer, because we're at stake in both of those events, both finding the tenant and finding the customer. And if you think about those two diverse constituencies, if you will, you've got a consumer that's changed dramatically over the years. They're time-starved, they're convenience-driven, they shop across price points, they have lots of opportunities to shop. It's okay to wear clothes from Target and Neiman Marcus and talk about it openly. Retailers are challenged. They're confronting changing demographics, aging of the population, ethnicity. So retailers are cautious. They're very cautious. It's a herd mentality. Retailers are not pioneers. They're not pioneers. And in spite of that, I say that the glass is 3/4 full. In fact, if you go back a little bit and you think about retail in Philadelphia, for the Republican convention in 2003, we bussed conventioneers the King of Prussia. That's where people shop. That's where you had to shop for the Republican convention. I can recall before that the Louis Vuitton store opening up on Walnut Street and closing after a miserable experience a couple of years later. And it hasn't gotten better. We've seen department store consolidation, the closing of the Strawbridge's store as a result of the Federated May consolidation. For our company, that presented us with an opportunity, but if you look at the retail business generally, it was a challenge. Today, you've got $100 rents on Walnut Street. Michael, you can attest to that. You've got even $60 rents on Chestnut Street. Who would have thought when we were busing conventioneers the King of Prussia that we would have achieved those levels in Philadelphia? I think if you sort of look at the results, and Michael mentioned a few of them, Juicy Couture coming to 17th and Walnut, Lacoste, Armani Exchange, Sephora on Chestnut Street, Barney's Co-op coming. It's a pretty stellar list of tenants. Finally, a conventioneer, particularly with the expansion of the convention center about to occur, has a place to shop. And I think the the picture gets rosier. It's not just about downtown Philadelphia, although it is a rosy picture, and again, from sort of a personal perspective, and this isn't a commercial, but a fact. I mean, our acquisition of the gallery was really based on the fact that we saw an opportunity with the convention center and of course the Constitution Center to really take up the level of retailing there, which we're in the process of doing. In fact, hopefully we'll announce a major redevelopment of that in the next couple of months. So I think, again, in downtown Philadelphia, good news. If you look at the region is just as robust. I mean, you have the street retail, I think, that was talked about earlier going on, and there are more examples. The Old Worthington Steel site in Malvern, which O'Neill is doing, Ellis Preserve in Newtown Square, Valley Square in Warrington, but that's just a street retail, and I do believe that there is a vibrant mall redevelopment program. Today, we have over $300 million in capital employed in the redevelopment of Cherry Hill Mall, Voorhees Town Center, Plymouth Meeting Mall, Moorestown Mall, because we believe that the shopper in downtown Philadelphia, in the suburbs, we believe that there's an opportunity to capture more of that shopper. I think that as a market, we've become used to seeing our customers shop New York, shop other markets, and when we went out to see Nordstrom and talked to them about Cherry Hill and realized what they were, the great success that they were having at King of Prussia, and that there was a real opportunity. I mean, think of a major market like Philadelphia with one Nordstrom. Unheard of. And so we really see this as a business, and I know about gas prices, and I'm not immune to all the economic conditions that were spoken about earlier, although my economist professors from college wouldn't be surprised that I disagree with the economists. But when in spite of that, we're seeing traffic up and we're seeing sales up. And as a matter of fact, the National Retail Federation is predicting that we're going to see sales increases in 2007 in excess of 4%. Now, that's not as good as last year, but that's certainly no cause for alarm. And I think Philadelphia, as a submarket of that national trend, will perform even better.
Listening to you talk about these things, I guess the one question comes to me either on the hotel side or on the retail side. Are you concerned at all about oversupply?
Well, I think on the hotel side, it's good to have some good, healthy discussion about the chance of recession because, awareness of the risks can help take some of the froth out of the new supply. I think we've had a lot of increases in construction costs that also put a damper on that. And I think there's a lot of growth ahead in this market that new supply, as long as it isn't out of control, can be absorbed.
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned right now, again, except in the outlying areas where some things started and it's a little bit too late to pull back. But other than that, I think we're fine. Our biggest problem as a brokerage company has been there's not enough space for the demand at present. And I just actually like to touch on something that Joe mentioned and sort of ask Joe a question. I think what your company's doing at Plymouth Meeting, for example, is tremendous, adding Whole Foods and some users that are not traditionally associated with the mall, taking advantage of, the great real estate. You also mentioned people are cross-shopping Target and Neiman Marcus, and it's okay. And, it's been rumored that we're going to have a Target in King of Prussia in the mall. What are your thoughts with regard to, that type of movement where you're seeing someone like a discounter, even if it's as good as Target, going into a mall like that?
Well, first off, we have a number of Targets in our properties, and I'm not sure they're a discounter anymore.
Right.
I think they're being perceived differently by the customer.
Agreed.
But I'll give you a case in point. We own a mall in Washington, D.C., called the Mall of Prince George's, and a couple of years ago, actually 2004, we introduced a Target to a mall environment. They are an anchor along with Macy's and JCPenney in that mall. And as a result of putting them in the mall and doing a renovation, sales have increased from $250 a square foot, this is the inline stores now, to over $400 a square foot. So, and if you look at what's happening in California right now, it's a great example. Building a new mall, anchors are Target, Nordstrom, and Neiman Marcus. So I think all of a sudden, what was perceived as an anchor that kind of took all the business from the mall stores is, obviously been proven not to be the case. So I welcome them.
Yeah. Thanks.
But in answer to your question...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And thanks for the commercial, by the way. In answer to your question, I think if you look at the growth that we're talking about, certainly in the retail sector, it is the higher end growth, and that's an area that I don't believe is near saturation yet. I think the concern would be the continued proliferation of box development. It's probably an area where there might be some concern around saturation.
Okay, great. With that, I'd like to open it up to the floor for any questions.
This is a question for Michael. You said that Walnut Street was in the top 10 list around the country, which I think that's great to hear that. And that area, Rittenhouse Row, is 100% occupied right now, the last time I checked. Where do you see this demand for higher-end retailing going? Do you see it moving to Chestnut? And what do you think the possibility is of it moving to Market Street, which for years we've tried to get an upgrade there and have not been very successful?
Great. Thanks for the question. We struggle with this all the time. Our biggest problem here is we wish Philadelphia were just much bigger in terms of the retail acceptance. When Chestnut Street was reopened to vehicular traffic, that really helped us turn the corner. It was just dead for so long. And what we had envisioned happening was, Walnut would become our Rodeo Drive, so to speak, and that Chestnut would be, more popular price, largely because a lot of larger footprints. There's better space there for the bigger users. But it's been like pulling teeth over time. Our biggest thing, I think, in turning the corner was we did H&M at 15th and Chestnut, which was a really tough deal to make. And then other people kind of bought into that. And now we're starting to see higher-end people go there as well. We've recently placed South Moon Under, and you have Beau Concept, and Sephora just opened. So we're getting a lot of critical mass. People are definitely interested in the street. Market Street is really pushing up as well. We've done a lot of transactions there recently, north of $100 a foot, but it's mostly financial institutions, quick casual restaurants, people that are catering to the office tenants, and then the sidewalks roll up at 5 o'clock. I mean, there's Cozy in my office building, and things never open by the time I leave. You go past Starbucks, they're closed. We still have a long way to go. East Side is showing tremendous signs of life. We did West Elm and Lucky Strike, and you had Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams, and some really interesting people in that whole area that Tony Goldman's been working on for so long. That's got a lot of life. Market East is really poised for redevelopment. You've got Girard Square, hopefully 250,000 square feet of new space coming online there. A lot of interest from the larger format users. I think that's where you're going to see, again, the Targets and Bed Bath & Beyonds of the world. The fact that we don't have a Bed Bath & Beyond in Center City, Philadelphia, you have to cross a bridge to get to it is just ridiculous. So we're seeing that area happening as well. Washington Avenue, South Philadelphia, believe it or not, we're seeing a lot of interest in not only in residential development, but as a result, in retail projects getting proposed there as well. So there's life that the market's expanding, but we're also getting a lot of inquiries on how do we still get on Walnut between Broad and the Square, and who do we have to buy out to do it?
Okay, well, look, this has been terrific. Thanks very much. I want to join me in thanking the panel. And special thank you to Scott.
We hope you enjoyed this Urban Land Institute podcast recording. If you have comments or suggestions about these podcasts, please email steve@professionalpodcasts.com. We produce these programs in the studios of Professional Podcasts in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. For the Urban Land Institute, this is Steve Lubetkin. Thanks for being with us, and take good care.